So good morning students, let's start with our lecture today. So a quick recap of what we did yesterday. So in yesterday's lecture we initially saw the structure of an optical receiver which consists of a pin diode or an APD diode followed by filter amplifier equalizer and then a decoder. More detail about that will be done in module 3. We'll see each block in detail. Then we moved on to the basics of optical law or the theory which through which light is going to propagate inside a fiber, and we saw that a fiber consists of two parts. So the inside part is known as the core and the outside is known as the cladding or just the clad. And then additionally you may also have a buffer or a jacket, right? So this is something that we saw. You can also view this from the side, and from the side the fiber will look like that, right? So it's more like a wire or a rubber band, if you want to say it like that. Okay. And then we saw the total internal reflections. I'll quickly just draw one of the diagrams that we saw. So you have an incident ray, you have an incident ray here, and it makes an angle, let's say phi 1 here, and an angle theta 1 here. And then part of this ray, is the screen visible?
No, sir.
Okay, hold on. I think now it should be visible. Just give me a moment. I think it should be back up now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So part of this incident ray will get refracted, and part of it is going to be reflected, right? So what we discussed yesterday was we want all of the light to be only inside the core of the fiber here, right? We do not want any light to be inside the cladding. That means we want all of the light to be only inside this material with a refractive index N1, not inside the material with refractive index N2, which we assume is less than N1, right? So this becomes a denser medium, right? Because N is C by V. That is speed of light in vacuum divided by speed of light in the medium. So the medium could be air, glass, or any other medium, right? So what we do here is, to ensure that all of the light, the incident ray is only reflected into the denser medium, we start increasing the angle. That means if you visualize, we start pulling this incident ray on this side towards the horizon. And once we do that, this refracted ray, this refracted ray starts moving towards the horizon. Okay? So then you will finally have an angle. So let me erase this refractive ray. So finally you will have an angle for which the refracted ray will be exactly in the horizontal, right? At that moment we call phi 1 as phi c, and we call theta 1 as theta c, where phi c is going to be the critical angle, right? However, this scenario again is not helpful for us, because if you see, the refracted ray is only on the horizontal. We actually want this refracted ray to become a reflected ray. That means it should go inside the denser medium. Therefore, we must ensure that the incident ray or the light which is thrown inside the optical fiber is at an angle phi 1 greater than phi c, right? That is what we are expecting. And once this happens, we call that phenomena as total internal reflection. That means all of this incident ray for phi 1 greater than phi c will only be reflected inside. There will not be any refracted. So all of this will only get reflected inside. So through this phenomena, we can get all of the light to propagate only inside the optical fiber core, right? We also discussed the equation for critical angle. So we found that phi c should be sine inverse of n2 divided by n1. So this critical angle is only dependent on the refractive index of the two mediums, that is the core and the cladding. Right? We also discussed something which is known as a numerical aperture, NA, which is given as root of n1 square minus n2 square or sine theta A, and we discussed about acceptance angle. However, we have not derived that acceptance angle. Right? So that acceptance angle which I stated yesterday was just this. Theta A is sine inverse NA or equal to sine inverse of root of n1 square minus n2 square. Right? However, we have not derived that. So today we are just going to be deriving that particular factor. Right? So what we are going to do now is the derivation for the acceptance angle, or in particular the relation between numerical aperture, which is the light gathering capacity of an optical fiber. That's how it is defined. So we want to see the relation between NA, numerical aperture, refractive index, and something which is known as index difference. Okay. So I'll tell you what this index difference is. Okay. And all of this should be related to theta A, which is known as the acceptance angle. Okay. I must let you know that this theta A in your book in John Senior is written as theta naught. Okay, so they are one and the same. So in the VTU exam also you could look at the question which is the derived theta naught. Okay, it is same as the acceptance angle. I am just calling it theta 8 because it is acceptance angle. Okay, so both are the same. Okay. So let us first draw the diagram. So you need to visualize this in the form of an optical fiber, right? So I will just draw an optical fiber on the side way. So this is the core and this is the cladding. So the cladding looks like this, the core looks like that. This is having a refractive index of n1, and this has a refractive index n2 which is less than n. So this is the core, this is the cladding. Okay, and you're going to be propagating light inside this core. Okay, so that's how an optical fiber looks like. Now let's draw the diagram to which will help us in deriving the acceptance. Okay? So instead of drawing the diagram in the form of the optical fiber, I am going to draw the diagram in the form of boundary between the two medium. So this is the cladding which is having a refractive index n2. So this is the clad or the cladding. This is going to be the core which is n1. Okay. Now let this be the line that cuts this into two halves. Okay. Now there is going to be an incident light. Okay. Let us assume that this environment outside is air and it has a refractive index n0. Okay. Now I am going to start to propagate light. So let this be the incident ray inside the medium. This is the incident ray, and let this make an angle. Let this make an angle of theta A with a horizontal. Now part of this incident ray, let me call this incident ray, part of this incident ray is going to be reflected and part of it is going to be refracted, right? So let me draw one dotted line. Let's say this incident ray was like this. Okay, it wasn't the line which I have drawn earlier. Okay, let this incident ray, initial incident ray was the dotted line. So part of this will get refracted and this will go inside the cladding. Part of it will be reflected. That means part of it will go inside the core. However, we do not want that scenario. So what we have done here is we have taken this incident ray towards this darkened line, that is this line here, right? So we have ensured that the angle between the horizontal and this incident ray is some theta a, such that now this ray will not get refracted, it will only get reflected. So now this incident ray, look at the darkened line, will only get reflected inside the core of the fault. So now this incident ray is only getting reflected inside the core. None of it is getting refracted, right? So that is the difference here. So I'll repeat again very quickly. If the incident ray was these dotted lines, then part of the ray will get refracted into the cladding and part of it will get reflected, right? However, we don't want that because we are losing light in this case. Therefore, we ensure that the incident ray is not at this angle, the larger angle, the dotted line. Instead, the incident ray is at an angle theta a, the darkened line, right? So in this case, now the incident ray is only getting reflected inside the core. It is not getting refracted, and we are following the Snell's law. So what I have shown with the darkened line is the total internal reflection, right? So light propagation inside the optical fiber works only on the basis of total internal reflection, right? Okay. Now, because this is getting internally reflected, because this is getting totally internally reflected, therefore this becomes 90-degree. And since this is 90-degree, I know that theta 1 will be theta c and phi 1 will be phi c. That is what we had discussed in Snell's law, right? And all of this is just the reflected. Okay, so basically what is happening is when the light will be outside the acceptance angle, then refraction is going to take place. However, when it is within the acceptance angle, then phi 1 is going to be greater than phi c. Then total internal reflection is going to take place, right? So we can also draw this acceptance angle in some other form, that is the similar form on top. So you could also have an incident ray like this, and it will exactly undergo the same process in the opposite direction, right? So now if you join these two incident rays, it forms a shape of a cone. That's why this theta naught is the acceptance angle, and this entire cone shape is known as the acceptance cone, because it is conical in nature or conical in shape. Okay. So what we are interested in is to have the incident ray within the acceptance angle, right? So point number 1 is have incident ray within the acceptance angle, right? So within the acceptance angle, if this is satisfied, then I'm going to have phi 1 greater than phi c, right? So this will be your angle here, phi 1 greater than or equal to phi c. At critical angle, we want to exceed it, right? If this does not happen, then some part of the ray is going to be reflected outside, right? So now let us do the mathematics and see what exactly is happening there, right? So if I take this diagram which we have just drawn and name the points, so let us name the point, this point here at the boundary as capital A, and this point which is the boundary of the core and cladding as B. So point A is when the light is entering the optical fiber, and point B is when the light is hitting the boundary between the core and the cladding, right? So what is happening at those points, right? So we are going to use the Snell's law, right? And the Snell's law says that if this is satisfied, the total internal reflection is satisfied, then I'm just going to have N1 sine phi 1 equal to N2 sine phi 2. However, since total internal reflection takes place, I'll have N1 sine phi 1 equal to N2 sine. Now phi 2 will become 90 degrees. Right? You can see in the diagram there. So this angle here will be 90 degrees. Right? So what is going to happen now? Therefore, from this equation, N1 sine phi 1 will become N2 into 1, which implies that uh, sine phi 1 will be N2 divided by N. Let us call this equation 1. Let us call this equation 1. Okay. Now, let us look at the other angle. Now, the angle here, the angle between the reflected ray and the horizontal, this angle here is theta 1. Therefore, the angle between the cladding and the incident ray here is theta. Right? They both will be the same angles. So the angle here and the angle here will be theta. So having done that, now we can write an equation. N1 sine theta 2 will be N2, or N1 sine theta 2 can be written in the form of theta 1 as 90 degree minus theta 1, which will be N2. And I can write this equation as N1 cos theta 1 is N2, which implies cos theta 1 is N2 by N1. Let us call this equation 2. So now you have two equations. Now you have two equations in the form of phi 1 and theta 1, and both are equal to N2 by N1. Right? Now, let us look at the last point, point A. So what is happening at point A? At point A, you have a light ray, incident ray, which is coming from air. The environment is air with a refractive index N0, and it is entering another medium with a refractive index of N1. So at point A, if you look at the diagram, so at point A, I can use Snell's law and write N0 sine theta naught, N0 sine theta A equal to N1 sine theta 1. Okay. So this could be a point of confusion for students, because we are used to the equation as N1 sine theta 1 equal to N2 sine theta 2. However, you please note here that in this case, the incident ray is coming from a medium, air, with a refractive index N0, and it makes an angle with the horizontal, which we are calling as theta A. So the left hand side becomes N0 sine theta A equal to, now this incident ray is entering the core with an angle of theta 1 with the horizontal, and the refractive index is N1, right? So therefore the RHS becomes N1 sine theta, right? So let me rewrite this equation here so that we will have continuity. So at point A, you have N0 sine theta A equal to N1 sine theta 1. Therefore, sine theta A is N1 by N0 sine theta 1, and we can rewrite this as sine theta a is n1 by n naught. Now I'll replace sine theta 1 in terms of cos, so it will be 1 minus cos square theta 1, right? And I already have the value of cos theta 1 in equation 2, so I'm going to substitute that. Therefore you have sine theta a as should be, so you have n1 by n naught square root of 1 minus, now cos theta 1 is n2 by n1, so you'll have n2 by n1 the whole square, n2 by n1 the whole square. Okay, now we know that n naught is the refractive index of the air, and we know that the value of refractive index of the air is 1. Therefore, I'm going to use that in this equation. So you have sine theta a as n1 by 1. I'm replacing this n0 with 1. And you have square root of 1 minus n2 square divided by n1 square. I can also rewrite this equation as n1 square root of n1 square minus n2 square divided by n1 square. Therefore, finally, sine theta a will become n1. Now I'll get that n1 square in the denominator of the square root outside, so it will just be n1 root of n1 square minus n2 square. So finally we have our equation with us that sine theta a, or the acceptance angle in the form of the sine function, will be root of n1 square minus n2 square, or theta a is sine inverse root of n1 square minus n2 square. This is an important equation for us. Okay, so this is a very important equation. It will help us in solving the numericals here. Okay, so we could do a little bit more mathematics here. We can define what is known as a relative refractive index difference. We can define this as delta, which is equal to n1 minus n2 divided by n. So this will be useful for us in numericals if the index difference is given to us. Okay, so let us call this equation 3. I think we have not used equation 3 anywhere. Yeah, so that will be equation 3. So that is known as the index difference there. Now, why is it the difference? Because it is the difference between n1 and n2. And why is it relative? It is relative to, if you look at the denominator, it is in relation with n. Right? So now we can do a little bit more mathematics with this. So you have the numerical aperture, which is root of n1 square minus n2 square. So I'm just going to write this in the form of a plus b into a minus b. So you have n1 square minus n2 square. So I'm going to write this in the form of n1 minus n2 into n1 plus n2. Now, in general, n1 and n2 have very close values. So n1 and n2 have very close value. So if one value is 1.41, the other would be 1.42 or 1.43. This we'll see in the numericals, right? Therefore I can approximate this NA or numerical aperture as 2 times n1 into n1 minus n2. So I'm taking this addition value here, and I'm just, since n1 and n2 are almost the same, I'm just replacing n2 with n1 and calling it 2n1. I cannot substitute that factor here in n1 minus n2 because it will become 0. That doesn't make sense, right? So I'm just replacing it. So it will be an approximate value. So I'll replace this equal sign with an approximation. So now doing that, therefore NA becomes root of 2n1 minus n2 into n1 by n1. So I am multiplying and dividing by n1, and approximately and approximately therefore approximately this just becomes 2 n1 square, and I will replace this n1 minus n2 divided by n1 as delta, because if you see the value of delta is n1 minus n2 by n1. So what I have done in this bracket is I have taken 2n1 into n1, so it becomes 2n1 square. Then I have taken this n1 minus n2 divided by n1, that is nothing but delta, right? Therefore finally na approximately is, if I take n1 square outside the square root, it will become n1 root 2 delta. So this is another equation which can be used to find the value of numerical aperture if index difference is given to us. Okay. So what are the important equations that we would require from all of this what we have derived? So what we have derived here is the acceptance angle, and we have shown that if the incident ray is greater than the acceptance angle, then part of the incident ray is going to be refracted inside the cladding, which is not a good scenario for us because we want all of the light to be only inside the core. Therefore, the incident angle or the incident ray or the light inside the fiber should be shot inside in such an angle that inside the core total internal reflection occurs, because of which the light stays only inside the core of the fiber. And based on that, we have derived the acceptance angle theta A. And if you see, this theta A is just a function of the refractive indices, that is n1 and n2, right? So this is an important equation which we derived here. Theta A is sine inverse of root n1 minus n2 square. Okay. Now, based on that, we introduced what is known as a relative index difference. So delta, it is relative, it is a difference because it is n1 minus n2 and it is relative to n1, right? That's how it is defined. And then based on that, we have found another equation to solve or find the value of numerical aperture. Okay, you can also find numerical aperture like we wrote yesterday as this. So Na is also root of n1 square minus n2 square, which is also sine theta A. Okay. So this is another format or form of equation which can be used to find the numerical aperture. So based on what is given in the numerical, which values are given in the numerical, we should be in a position to find, to use that equation to find the values. Okay. So let us see if we can solve some numericals based on this. Or let me go ahead and explain you the types of the fibers, because we have done this refractive index in detail, and then we will solve the numericals based on this. So the numericals based on this are very simple, provided you have the equation to be used here. Okay. So in general, the questions which are asked in the exam are based on numerical aperture. They ask you to derive the numerical aperture or the acceptance angle followed by a numerical. So it could be an 8 to 10 or 12 mark question, right? And it will have a numerical definitely. Okay. So let us do the type of the fiber, and then we'll proceed to solving the numericals. Okay. So the next part which we want to do is the types of the optical fibers. So before we do that, do you have any questions on this mathematics? Or anything you have not understood, anything you want me to repeat? Anybody? So I'll just give you a minute. I'll just scroll through this screen, and you just see if you have understood everything. I mean, is everything clear? or is it something that you have not understood? So I'll just give you a minute to just do that, and I will keep scrolling so that you can see that you actually understood. So this was the diagram which we have drawn, and we want the incident ray within the acceptance angle, uh, because of which we'll have phi 1 greater than phi c, which will ensure the total internal reflection. Then we've used the Snell's law to find phi 1, and then we've used the Snell's law again to find theta 1. Then at point A, that is the light coming from the air into the core, we have written an equation and we found sine theta A based on that. So finally, we have the equation which is starred for sine theta A or just theta A, and we can use that to solve the numericals. Then we introduce the relative refractive index difference as specified by equation 3, and we made an approximation there because n1 and n2 are close to each other. And then finally we are able to derive in equation 4 an alternate equation for Na, that is the numerical aperture, which is the light gathering capacity of a fiber. And Na can also be written in the other form which we had specified yesterday, which is in the form of n1 square minus n2 square square root, followed by which is equal to sine theta A. So you have another way of writing the Na factor. So now let's look at the types of the OFC. So since nobody is asking question, I'm assuming it is clear to you. Please go through this again to see if you are able to understand. You can contact me for anything. So now let's look at what are the types of the fibers. So when it comes to the types of the fibers, so let me make a branch here. So when you have types of optical fiber cables, you can have two types, means you can have types in regard to two factors. One is based on the refractive index profile, and the other is based on what is known as mode. Okay, so I'll explain you first what is mode, and then we can look at the types. So if we divide the optical fibers in terms of refractive index profile, we could have two types. One is known as the step index fiber, in short SI. The other could be graded index fiber, that is in short GI. If we separate in terms of mode, we have two types. We could have single mode fiber, which is in short SMF, and the other is a multi-mode or multi-mode fiber, which is MM. Okay. Now, having these types, you can combine them to have, for example, let's say a step index single mode fiber, a step index multi-mode fiber, a graded index single mode fiber or a graded index multi-mode fiber. So before we go into the details, when in terms of modes, multi-mode fiber is used for short distance. So this distance could be somewhere between 500 meters to about 1 kilometer. Not more than that. Okay. There are disadvantages of multi-mode fiber if you use them for longer distances, and that's a very important concept which we will discuss in detail. For multi-mode fiber is always used for short distance, mostly in an office environment, okay, or a very small campus. Uh, in comparison, the single mode fiber used for longer distance, and this distance could be so needless to say that the most commonly used types of fiber would be the single mode fiber. Okay, and this is the kind of fiber which is used for the optical fiber communication these days in the 5th generation optical fiber. Also, when it comes to index difference, the step index fiber is used more than the graded index fiber. However, the graded index fiber gives us less dispersion, which we will discuss later, but graded index fibers are costly. These step index fibers are cheap. However, they give less, the graded index fibers give less dispersion. The step index fibers give more dispersion. Yet there are better methods to take care of the dispersion. Therefore, step index fiber is the one which is used a lot. Okay. So let's look at the types of these fibers, and we will concentrate first on the refractive index profile type, and then we'll move on to the type based on mode. Before moving to the type based on modes, we will have to first see what is this idea of a mode and what exactly is the definition of the mode. So that we'll do later. Let's first look at the refractive index profile. So what do you mean by this refractive index profile? So when it comes to the refractive index profile, so let me start drawing here. We'll first do the step index. So the step index fibers. So for the step index fiber, as the name suggests, it is step. That means if I move from an environment with refractive index N2 to an environment which is having a refractive index N1, and if I draw the normal like this, then there is a step increase in the refractive index. That means the profile looks like this. So you can see what is happening here. You can see what is happening here. When the moment I step into an environment here, the moment I step into an environment here, where there is a change in the refractive index from N2 to N1, there is a step increase here. There is a step increase in the refractive index. Then within the medium where the refractive index is N1, the refractive index remains constant. Then when there is a change in the refractive index or the medium, at this point you can see that there is a step change in the refractive index. The y-axis here is N of R, where R is the radius of the core and the cladding. So you can visualize this. I'll draw it with a dotted line. You can visualize this like this. So this is the core. This is the core. which has a refractive index N1, and this is the cladding. So in the cladding we have N2, whereas in the core we have N1. So let me redraw this like this. Right. So whenever there is a change in from cladding to the core, you can see that there is a step increase in the refractive index. So that's why it is known as a step index fiber. Okay. So that was for explanation. Let me redraw this diagram again. So in the step index fiber, this is what is happening. So the environment here is N2, the environment here is N1, that is the refractive index, and then there is N2. So there is a change in the refractive index whenever you move from the cladding to the core, right? Please remember, refractive index is C by V. Okay, so if you have a higher refractive index, the velocity is going to be low and vice versa. And in our case, we have assumed that N2 is less than N1. Therefore, N2 has a lesser, the cladding is going to have a lesser refractive index. Therefore, the velocity is always going to be higher in the cladding. Okay. The next type is the graded index fiber. In this case, there is a change in the refractive index moving from cladding to core, not as a step, but in the form of a grade. A grade is a slow change. Okay, so let me draw this and you will be able to visualize. So if this is R, and R here is basically the radius of the core. If this is NR, then if I move from N2 to N1, so let's say I reach the core here at these points, then there is no step increase, rather the refractive index changes gradually like this, reaches a high point and then moves a little slow. This is N1. So you can see the difference between the graded index and the step index. So in the step index, there's an abrupt change in the refractive index, whereas in the graded index fiber, there is a gradual change in the refractive index. Right. So we can see what would be the advantage from the graded index fiber. So if I draw the core
Your voice
here,
is breaking.
and if I draw the cladding here,
Hello, sir.
hello, am I audible?
Now it's audible, sir.
Yeah. Does anyone have a question?
No, sir. Your voice was breaking, sir. So I interrupted.
Okay. Now am I audible?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So I was explaining the graded index fiber which we have drawn here, and the step index fiber which we have drawn here on the sideways. So if I see the optical fiber from the side vision, then you can see that this is what is happening. So I move from the cladding I come to the core, there is an abrupt change in the refractive index, and then I move here. So this is what is happening in step index fiber, right? If I see the graded index fiber from the side vision, this is the core and this is the cladding. So I'm coming from the cladding inside the core. Instead of an abrupt change, there is a gradual change, and it decreases, then goes to the core and goes. So you can see the change, right? So what I've drawn is the what I had drawn previously was what you would see from the front, that is these two diagrams which are tick marked, and what I have drawn on the side is what you would see if you are viewing the optical fiber from the sideways, right? Of course, you will not be able to visualize that, but if you are able to open up the fiber and see from the sideways, you can see that inside the core there is an abrupt change when it reaches the core, and then one in the graded index fiber GI, this would be SI. This is what is going to happen. Okay. So there is an advantage that we get out of graded index fiber in terms of velocity, right? That we will be able to discuss in a much better way or manner once we understand this concept of mode. What is this mode? For which we require what is known as ray theory, which we'll be doing in the next lecture. Once we understand this concept of mode, we will be able to understand what is a single mode and what is a multi-mode. I've already given you the applications of the single mode and multi-mode fiber. Okay. So the the fibers which are being used in India right now are usually the plastic fibers. They are single mode fibers, and they are step index fibers. In some office environments in the metro cities like Bangalore and Delhi, they do use multimode fibers, but these are very much limited to about 250 to 300 meters, because you start getting a lot of dispersion out of multimode fibers for longer distances than that. Okay. So in the next lecture, we'll discuss about what is a mode and how the modes can be helpful for us in terms of defining the single mode fiber and the multi-mode fiber. We'll also look at the ray theory in understanding in details what is the concept of ray, and then we'll move on to solving few numericals based on what we have derived today in terms of the acceptance angle. We'll also look at mode theory if possible, and then move into the details of single mode fiber, since that fiber is used mostly in comparison to multi-mode fibers. Okay. So I think the time is already up today. So I'll pick up all these in the next lecture. Okay. So I'll see you in the next lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.